I walked into the cafe 5 minutes early. She hated when I was late, said it made her feel like she was waiting alone in life, not just at tables. So for the past 4 years, I made a habit of being on time. Always. It was one of those quiet places with hanging lights, exposed brick, and soft jazz humming through the air. I'd made a reservation, same spot we always chose, corner table, right by the window. But she wasn't alone. From the entrance, I spotted Lena immediately. She was sitting at our table, but across from her was a man I didn't recognize. Tall, stylish in a try-hard sort of way, with a watch that probably cost more than my rent. His arm was stretched along the back of her chair like he belonged there. Not just physically, but personally. Like he had a place in her life. She laughed. Not politely. Not the fake kind you give to strangers. But the laugh she used to give me when I made a dumb joke during late-night takeout or while brushing our teeth together. The one that made me feel like I was the only one in the room. I took a breath. For half a second, I told myself it was probably nothing. That she'd introduce me, explain everything, and I'd feel stupid for jumping to conclusions. But my gut didn't believe me. I walked over, not fast, not slow, and pulled the ring box out of my coat pocket. Simple black velvet, nothing flashy. Inside was a ring I'd been saving up for over the past 7 months. I'd spent weeks comparing cuts, asking her best friend for advice. Lena liked timeless things, not big, but meaningful. I reached their table and set the box down right between them. I didn't say a word. She turned, froze. Her body language shifted in an instant, like watching someone hit a patch of ice. She jerked upright, pulled away from the man just slightly, her smile faltering. He looked at me, confused, then at her. "Babe," she said, too fast, too rehearsed. "You're early. Am I interrupting?" Her eyes flicked to the guy beside her. She forced a laugh. "This is Chris," she said. "He's just a colleague. We're going over the proposal for next week's pitch." Chris, still trying to play it cool, offered a hand. I ignored it. The silence hung there. I could feel my pulse in my ears. It wasn't just what I saw, it was what I didn't. Her body language, his ease, the way her eyes didn't match her voice. "I'll see you at home," I said quietly. I walked out before she could respond. I drove around the block 3 times before heading back to the apartment. I didn't want to walk in angry. I didn't want to slam doors or yell. I just wanted to understand what I saw, or more accurately, what I felt. When I opened the front door, she was already there, pacing in the living room, phone still in her hand like she'd been deciding whether or not to call me. "Seriously?" she snapped the moment I stepped in. "What the hell was that? What do you mean? You embarrassed me, Mark. You showed up uninvited, dropped a ring box like you were making some dramatic movie scene, and walked out. Do you have any idea how that looked? I didn't know I needed an invite to lunch with my fiancé." "Don't do that," she said, shaking her head. "Don't play the victim." I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the script had flipped so fast I wasn't even sure if I was still in the same story. "I'm the victim?" I asked. "You were sitting with some guy I've never met, laughing like you forgot I exist, and I'm the problem? Chris is helping me with a campaign. That's it. We grabbed lunch between meetings. It's not that deep." He had his arm behind your chair. So, I repeated. "You don't even let me do that in public." She rolled her eyes. "He always sits like that. I didn't even notice." I stared at her. "You didn't notice his arm around you? God, you're overreacting." "No, I'm reacting. There's a difference." She crossed her arms. Her tone shifted from defensive to scolding. "You've been weird lately," she said. "Always looking over my shoulder, questioning who I'm texting, getting quiet when I'm on a call. That's not normal, Mark." I didn't respond, because maybe she was right. I had been more observant, but not out of paranoia, out of pattern. Her schedule had changed. Her tone had changed. Her attention had shifted, like I was background noise and someone else was now the main character in her life. "You've been looking for something to be mad about," she continued, "and now you think you found it. But there's nothing going on." "I was going to propose," I said quietly. She stopped talking. I had this whole thing planned. A weekend trip. Your favorite place. I was going to do it right. And now, I didn't finish the sentence. She walked over, softened her expression, tried to touch my arm. Babe! I stepped back. That's when her tone changed again. If you're going to make this some big deal, then maybe you're not ready to propose, she snapped. Because marriage is built on trust, and clearly you don't trust me. There it was. The pivot. Classic. Her actions weren't the issue. My reaction was, I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't see the girl I fell in love with. I saw someone who had learned to *p*nice guilt, who knew how to flip the script so smoothly that I almost believed I was in the wrong. So I did the one thing she didn't expect. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I walked over to the dresser, took the ring box from my coat pocket, and set it down gently. I'm not going to marry someone who thinks trust means keeping their lies straight. She didn't say anything. Not at first. And for the first time in 4 years, I didn't wait for her to explain. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because I had to, it was Saturday, but because I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide if I'd just blown up my relationship over a misunderstanding, or if I'd finally admitted to myself what I already knew. Lena wasn't beside me. The bed was cold where she should have been. I didn't know if she'd slept in the guest room or not at all. I got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table, letting the silence stretch. My mind started pulling pieces together like a puzzle that had always been sitting on the table. I had just refused to look at the picture it made. It had started months ago, subtle at first. The first piece was her phone. She used to leave it charging in the kitchen overnight. We had that unspoken comfort. No secrets, no snooping, just trust. But then the habits changed. Her phone began living in her pocket. Always locked. Always screen down. Notifications disappeared. Passwords changed. When I'd ask, she'd joke, too many spam calls, or work's getting strict with data security. I told myself it made sense. She was working on bigger projects, pitching to bigger clients. Maybe it was about work. Then it was her schedule. She used to be home by 6 most nights. We'd cook together, watch reruns, talk about our days. But suddenly it was late nights with the team, or emergency revisions that couldn't wait until morning. Her outfits changed, too. She started dressing up more. Heels for just another day at the office. New blouses I hadn't seen before. Makeup that took time. It wasn't just looking nice. It was effort. Effort for someone. Another piece, the perfume. She had this one scent she only used on date nights. Warm, floral, familiar. It lingered in the car after we'd gone out. It stayed on her pillow. It reminded me of our best days. And then, she started wearing it on the nights I wasn't invited. Going out with Sophie, she'd say casually. Girls' night. We might hit a bar or two, you know how she is. And I did. I knew Sophie, her college roommate, the wild one who'd calmed down just enough to seem trustworthy, but still had a habit of pushing boundaries. Lena would leave the house glowing, laughing at her own jokes, dancing in front of the mirror while she picked earrings. And she'd come home late, too late, once at 2 a.m., another time at nearly 4. One night she came in smelling like wine, and cologne that didn't belong to me. I noticed but didn't say anything. I told myself it was from being out at a crowded bar. Accidental, not intentional. I was desperate to believe her. I remember asking, "Had fun?" And she smiled. Yeah, we were just catching up. Sophie had a lot going on. Another piece. When we did spend time together, it wasn't the same. Her phone was always within reach, face down. She stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped finishing my sentences. We used to sync like clockwork. Now it felt like we were speaking different languages. She started canceling plans, skipping date nights, pulling away when I reached for her hand on the couch. Even the little things changed. The way she hugged me, more like a habit than a want. The way she'd sigh when I asked how her day went, like she was tired of explaining a life I was no longer part of. I remember one weekend in particular. I had booked a cabin, just a simple getaway in the mountains. I told her it would be good for us. Time to reconnect, unplug, escape the city. She looked uncomfortable, like I had asked her to attend a funeral. Said she had a migraine the night before we were supposed to leave. I'd just be a bummer the whole time, she said. You go. Take pictures for me. I didn't go. I stayed home and watched her scroll on her phone, texting someone with a look I hadn't seen in a long time. That smile you make when someone makes you feel wanted. Another night, I found her in the kitchen, phone to her ear, whispering. She said it was Sophie again. Private stuff, she insisted. I promised I wouldn't share. I nodded, but something in her voice was off. It had that softness she used to use with me. I wanted to believe it was just a friend in need. I wanted to believe a lot of things. Looking back now, I think I knew. Not in detail, not with proof. But I knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Because if I admitted it, then the life we'd built, the weekends at the farmer's market, the dreams of a dog and a fixer-upper house, the matching mugs in our cabinet, it all meant nothing. I was invested in the illusion. She was invested in the escape. That day after the cafe, Lena pretended like nothing happened. She came into the kitchen around 10, hair still damp from a shower, wearing the sweatshirt I'd bought her 2 birthdays ago, the one that said Lake Girl, even though we'd never lived near a lake. She poured coffee like it was any other day. Want some? She asked. I stared at her. She didn't meet my eyes. No, I said. Suit yourself. She sat across from me like we were still 2 people in love. She opened her laptop, checked emails, and made a few casual comments about how busy the upcoming week would be. Not a single word about the ring, about Chris, about the fact that I had walked away from her in public with no explanation, and she hadn't tried to stop me. You're quiet today, she said eventually. I've been quiet for a while, I said. You just stopped noticing. She didn't respond to that. Instead, she sipped her coffee and opened a spreadsheet. I got up, left the room, and sat in my car for an hour. I didn't even drive anywhere. Just sat there with the windows cracked, letting the wind carry the silence. My phone buzzed once. A notification from our shared calendar. Dinner with her parents next weekend. I stared at it, then deleted it. Not because I was angry, because I didn't see the point anymore. In the days that followed, I stopped trying to fix things. I stopped trying to figure out how to bring her back. Because I finally understood. She had already left. Not physically. Not yet. But emotionally, mentally. She'd been gone for months. Long before Chris, long before the lies, long before I ever saw the signs. She had slipped out quietly, one detail at a time, while I was still holding the door open for her return. And the worst part? She let me stay hopeful. Let me plan dates. Let me buy a ring. Let me believe. Until I saw the truth in a cafe window, reflected back at me in the shape of someone else's hand, on the woman I thought I was going to marry. 2 days passed after the cafe. 2 long, quiet days where Lena acted like we were just going through a rough patch. She texted me mundane things, grocery lists, reminders about bills, memes she thought were funny. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't trust myself to say anything without breaking whatever fragile calm still existed. On the 3rd day, I was at the auto shop where I've worked for almost a decade. The smell of oil and metal usually grounded me. Simple problems. Tangible solutions. Engines didn't lie, they either ran or they didn't. I was under the hood of a sedan when I heard my name. Mark? I straightened slowly, wiping my hands on a rag, already irritated at being pulled out of focus. When I looked up, my stomach dropped. It was him, the man from the cafe. Chris. He stood awkwardly near the entrance, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be there. He looked less confident than he had that day. No casual smile, no arm draped behind anyone. Just tension. Can we talk? He asked. Every instinct in my body told me to say no, to tell him to leave, to protect what little control I still had. But curiosity won. Make it quick, I said. We stepped outside, the noise of the shop muffled behind us. He took a breath like he'd been rehearsing this. I didn't know, he said immediately. I swear to you I didn't know. I crossed my arms. Didn't know what? That she was still with you. Lena told me you two were done. That you'd been broken up for months. The words landed heavier than I expected. She said you were controlling, he continued. Jealous. That she tried to leave but you made it difficult. That she felt trapped. I laughed, but it came out hollow. That's interesting, I said. Because she told me you were just a colleague. His jaw tightened. Then she lied to both of us. He looked down at the pavement, then back at me. I thought we were serious. I thought we were building toward something. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with confirmation. How long? I asked. He hesitated. A few months. That was it. The final piece. She's been to my place, he added quietly. More than once. This wasn't casual. I felt something detach inside me, like a wire snapping clean through. I had spent weeks questioning my instincts, convincing myself I was overreacting, bending logic to preserve a version of reality that no longer existed. And here it was, the truth, delivered calmly by the one person who had no reason to lie anymore. Why are you telling me this? I asked. He exhaled slowly. Because I found out yesterday that she's been messaging someone else. A bartender. Same story. Same lies. And suddenly everything made sense. I nodded. Get out, I said. He didn't argue. He just nodded once and walked away. I stood there long after he left, staring at nothing. What surprised me most wasn't the pain. It was the absence of it. No rage. No urge to confront her. No need for answers. Just emptiness. When I got home that night, Lena was on the couch scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her, looking comfortable, like someone who hadn't shattered another person's life. Hey, she said lightly, we need to talk. I looked at her for a moment, then I walked past her. She followed me into the bedroom, annoyed now. You can't just ignore me. I turned. Chris came by today. Her face went still. What? He told me everything. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes darted, calculating. He's lying, she said quickly. He's trying to cause problems. I didn't respond. He's upset because I pulled away, she added. He got attached. I sat down on the edge of the bed and finally looked at her. Stop, I said, not loudly, not angrily, just finished. She froze. I don't care anymore, I continued. You don't have to explain, or lie, or blame me. I already know who you are. For the first time, she didn't fight back. She just stood there, silent. And in that silence, everything ended. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with the undeniable understanding that the woman I loved didn't exist anymore, and maybe never had. After my talk with Chris, it was like something inside me reset. There was no more second-guessing. No more mental gymnastics trying to twist red flags into misunderstandings. The image of Lena leaning into him at that cafe, her voice rehearsed, her posture too comfortable. It all made sense now. Every lie fell into place like puzzle pieces I'd been refusing to fit together. Still, there was one thread left. Sophie. Lena had used her name like a get-out-of-jail-free card for months. Girls' night with Sophie. Spa day with Sophie. Sophie's going through stuff right now. I really need to be there for her. I never questioned it because Sophie had always been part of our life. I cooked dinner for her. She'd crashed on our couch. She'd even joked once that if Lena ever broke my heart, she'd take my side. Now I had to find out if that was all part of the show. I didn't tell Lena I was calling her. I just stepped outside, walked down the block, and dialed the number I'd memorized years ago. My hands were shaking slightly, but not from nerves, from restraint. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, Mark, Sophie said. Her voice was casual but not cheerful, almost like she'd been expecting this. Hey, I replied. Got a second? Yeah, what's going on? I want to ask you something, and I'd appreciate it if you told me the truth, no matter how bad it is. There was a pause, just long enough to confirm that she knew exactly what was coming. This about Lena? Yeah. Another pause. Then she sighed. I was wondering how long it would take. That was all the answer I needed. But I wasn't going to let her off easy. So how long have you been covering for her? Mark. Don't mark me, I snapped. She used your name to lie to me. Over and over. Did you know about Chris? I didn't know his name, she admitted. But I knew there was someone. She told me they were just talking at first. That she was confused. That she didn't want to hurt you. Right? I said bitterly. Because cheating in secret is so much less painful. Sophie was quiet again. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Why would you let me keep trying, keep loving her, while she was out there building a second life? She swore she'd end it, Sophie said finally. She said it was just a phase, that she'd fix things before it got worse. But she didn't, I said. No, Sophie admitted, her voice low now. She didn't. I felt a coldness spread in my chest. Not anger, not sadness, something heavier. The betrayal didn't just come from Lena. It came from the people who saw me walking toward a cliff and said nothing. I helped her pick out the ring, I said, almost to myself. What? She sent you pictures, didn't she? Asked for your opinion. That was the same week she stayed over at your place, right? Sophie didn't respond. That night, I continued, when she said you two stayed in and watched movies. That was the same night she slept with him, wasn't it? Still no answer. Sophie? I said, quieter now. Just tell me the truth. Not for her. For me. She exhaled, long and shaky. Yeah, it was. I leaned against a street lamp and closed my eyes. I didn't know it would go this far, she said. I swear, Mark. I thought she'd come clean. I thought she'd realize what she was throwing away. She didn't. I know. Silence stretched between us. Not awkward. Not angry. Just the kind of silence where everything that needed to be said had already been said, and none of it helped. I'm sorry, Sophie said, barely above a whisper. Me too, I replied and hung up. When I got back to the apartment, Lena was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone like it was any other day, like her whole world hadn't just been unmasked. Where were you? She asked. I didn't answer. You're really not going to talk to me? I talked to Sophie, I said. She froze. She told me everything, I added. The lies, the covers, the plans. Lena put her phone down. Mark, you let me walk into a proposal thinking I was planning our future, I said. You let me plan it while you were out playing house with someone else. I was confused. No, confusion doesn't last 4 months, I snapped. Confusion doesn't leave perfume on your collar and lies on your phone. Confusion doesn't let your best friend become your alibi while you sneak off to someone else's apartment. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, voice trembling now. But you did, I replied. And then you kept doing it. And when I caught you, you didn't apologize, you blamed me. You made me question myself. You made me think I was paranoid. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't know how to stop. I thought maybe if I just waited, it would work itself out. Yeah, I said bitterly. You waited so long. I stopped waiting for you. She looked at me like she wanted to say something. Anything. But there was nothing left to say. The bridge had burned behind us. She was on her side, and I was finally walking away from the smoke. It's funny, people talk about breakups like they happen in a moment. A fight, a betrayal, a discovery. But that's not how it works. It happens slowly. In the nights she stays out late. The names she drops too casually. The kisses that feel like routine instead of affection. It happens in silence. In glances. In gut feelings you push down because love is supposed to be hard sometimes. Right? But eventually there's nothing left to hold on to. Not the texts. Not the memories. Not even the version of her you built in your head. I had lost Lena long before I lost the relationship. And Sophie, she didn't break the truth. She just confirmed that the truth had been there the whole time, waiting for me to stop pretending. I hadn't spoken to Lena in 2 days. She tried to start small talk. Sent me a text asking if I wanted her to grab groceries. Left a sticky note on the fridge with a smiley face and Need more almond milk. Like everything was fine. I didn't respond. I didn't yell either. I didn't accuse or dramatize. I just detached. There was no point in fighting someone who had already decided which side they were on. But there was one person left I needed to talk to. Someone I respected more than almost anyone. Someone I had looked up to for years, her father. Mike. A tall, quiet man with a former soldier's presence. Steady hands, sharp eyes. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. When I first met him, I was nervous. Lena warned me that he didn't open up easily. But we hit it off over barbecue and beer. He loved classic cars. I worked in a shop. That was enough. Over time, he started calling me son. Not in a forced way, just casually. Like it was obvious. Like it was earned. He was the one who taught me how to grill a steak properly. Who handed me a beer and gave a nod of approval the first time I helped him build a shed in his backyard. Who told Lena, in front of me, if you ever let this one go, I'm keeping him. And now I had to tell him what she'd done. I called him that morning. You free? I asked. Always, he said. He didn't ask why I was calling. He didn't press. That was Mike. He waited until you were ready. I drove out to his house just after lunch. Quiet neighborhood. Freshly mowed lawn. The kind of place that felt like a permanent Sunday afternoon. He was already waiting on the porch when I pulled up. 2 chairs set up like he'd somehow known what I was coming for. Coffee or something stronger? He asked when I sat down. Coffee's fine, I said. Don't want to get emotional and drunk. He raised an eyebrow but didn't joke. Just nodded and poured 2 mugs from the thermos beside him. We sat in silence for a while. That was his thing. Let the quiet do the heavy lifting. Eventually, I spoke. I'm not sure how to say this, I began. But I think you deserve to know. He didn't respond. Just waited. I was going to propose to Lena, I said. I bought the ring. I had it planned. He nodded once. I figured. You've been solid since day one. I took a breath. She's been seeing someone else. He looked at me then. Not shocked. Just still. For how long? For months. Maybe more. Still no reaction. She lied to me. I continued. Used Sophie to cover for her. Told me it was work trips. Girls' nights. But it wasn't. Caught her. At a cafe. With him. She tried to lie about it. Said I was paranoid. He sipped his coffee. His jaw was tight. But his voice stayed even. You talked to the guy? Yeah. He came to my shop. Told me he didn't even know we were still together. Said she told him I was controlling. That she'd already left. A flicker of something crossed Mike's face. Not surprise, not confusion. More like disappointment. That tracks, he muttered. I raised an eyebrow. You knew. He sighed. I didn't know. But I noticed. The distance. The excuses. The way she flinched when your name came up last month. Like it reminded her of something she was trying to forget. He stared out at the yard. I thought maybe she was stressed. Figured she'd come to her senses. But I didn't want to interfere. You treated me like family, I said. You have no idea what that meant to me. He turned to face me fully. You are family, he said. That's not something I say lightly. And if she doesn't know what she just lost, then that's her burden. He stood up. Let's go. I blinked. Go where? To her apartment. What for? I'm not going to pretend I didn't hear this, he said. If she thinks I'm going to pat her on the back and pretend nothing happened, she's got another thing coming. I hesitated. Mike, you don't have to. I do, he interrupted. Because if I raised a daughter who could throw away someone like you and lie to everyone about it, then she needs to face the consequences. He grabbed his keys. I'm giving her one chance to tell me the truth, he said. And if she lies, even once, I'm walking. 15 minutes later, we were knocking on her apartment door. Lena opened it wearing leggings and a hoodie, her hair in a messy bun. She looked caught off guard, but not guilty. Not yet. Dad? She said. Mark. She stepped aside slowly, letting us in. I stood by the doorway while Mike went straight to the center of the living room like he owned the place. Which, in a way, he did. His presence filled the space in a way that made Lena visibly tense. "What's going on?" she asked. Mike didn't waste time. "Are you cheating on Mark?" Lena blinked. What? You heard me." Her eyes darted toward me, then back to him. I don't know what he told you." "I didn't come here to hear his side," Mike said. "I came to hear yours, and I'm only asking once." She opened her mouth, probably with another excuse ready. But she stopped, and nodded. A small, quiet, pitiful nod. Mike stood there for a few seconds longer, then turned. "Let's go, Mark." I followed. No screaming, no breakdown, no dramatic apology. Just silence. Lena didn't chase us. She didn't beg. She didn't try to explain. She just stood there in her own doorway as the two men who once loved her most walked away. One in heartbreak, the other in disappointment. When we got back to Mike's, he handed me a beer without saying a word. We sat on the porch again. Same chairs. Same thermos. Only now everything had changed. "I don't know what I expected," he said finally. "But I didn't expect her to admit it." "Yeah," I replied. "I didn't expect any of this. I used to worry about her ending up with someone who didn't treat her right," he said. "Never thought I'd be worried about the one she hurt." He shook his head slowly. "You deserved better." "I think I knew that for a while," I admitted. "You're a good man, Mark. You always have been. You don't need my permission to walk away. But just so you know, you've still got a place at this table. Anytime." I didn't say anything, just nodded. Because sometimes, that's all you can do when someone hands you the kind of loyalty you thought you'd lost. A few days later, she invited me to a party. Said it was just a casual thing with friends. I went, part curiosity, part closure. She acted like nothing had happened. Laughing, joking, holding court like the breakup was some awkward rumor. Then, loud enough for the whole room, she joked, "Hope my ex isn't still jealous." Everyone laughed. I didn't. I walked up calmly, placed her engagement ring on the counter and said, "He's not. He's just done." She froze. The room went silent. No one laughed after that. I left without looking back. After that, she went online. She painted me as the jealous, toxic ex, vague posts about emotional abuse, trying to rewrite the story. I said nothing until I posted *TS. Her messages to Chris. Photos from his place. No caption. No attack. Just truth. The fallout was instant. He left her. Turns out she'd been messaging someone else too. She deleted her accounts, quit her job, and moved back in with her mom. I booked a solo trip to Utah and watched the sun rise in silence. Finally, peace.